I rarely accept invitations to spend the weekend at someone else's place, even if it's close friends. I've always had this strange feeling that sleeping in another person's home is somehow wrong, like slipping into someone else's dreams. But this time, I said yes. I needed a break, and when Artem invited me to his parents' house, nestled in greenery and silence, I decided to go. He met me at the station, smiling, but looking a bit worn out. I figured he was just tired. We arrived at the house by evening. His parents were away. The house stood quiet, almost empty, but well kept. The living room was filled with deep wooden tones, and the windows of the conservatory looked like mirrors, only they didn't reflect another space, but another state of reality. They gave me a small room next to the conservatory. Its walls were covered with pale fabric, and the tall windows stretched almost to the ceiling. An old TV sat on the nightstand, crackling and hissing when I turned it on before bed. I didn't want to fall asleep right away. The dim screen lit the room faintly, and I watched some old black-and-white film with the sound off. I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke up suddenly, as if something had pushed me from the inside. The room was dark. The TV had long since turned off. Outside the conservatory windows, pure night. And then I felt it. Not saw, not heard, felt. Someone was there. I lay on my back, every muscle in my body locked tight. I didn't move, didn't breathe deeply, didn't even blink. My eyes stayed shut. I knew, I felt, if I opened them, I'd see something unbearable. It was close, right above me, hanging over me like a shadow, breathing, heavy, as if the air thickened when it leaned near my face. I could almost feel the warmth of skin, not mine. Something alive and foreign stared at me with such intensity it felt like my mind would snap. The air carried a faint smell. Not death, no, the scent of old clothes, damp earth, like a cellar. Cold goosebumps crawled down my neck, along my spine, but I didn't move. I had no intention of looking. I didn't want to know what it was. I had this certainty, irrational yet absolute. If I saw it, I would never come back. Life would change irreversibly. So I forced myself back to sleep, as if unconsciousness could be a shield. At breakfast the next morning, Artem asked how I'd slept. I told him. Between spoonfuls of oatmeal and sips of coffee, I described the horror. He listened closely, said nothing, just frowned a bit. Then he relaxed and waved it off. Old house, maybe drafts, maybe my subconscious. But I couldn't shake the feeling. What happened that night wasn't a dream. It was too real, too physical. Later that day, I went back to the room to pack my things. Sunlight streamed through the windows. Everything looked peaceful, normal. I almost laughed at myself, until I looked at the conservatory window and froze. On the fogged-up glass, left by the morning humidity, was a mark. Not a handprint, something like the imprint of a face, too large to be human. You couldn't miss it. A blurred outline, as if someone had pressed their forehead and cheeks against the window, staring in. I suddenly felt sick. I said nothing to Artem, just said a quick goodbye, and left. A week passed. Every night I woke up at exactly 3 a.m., gripped by that same feeling of dread. But at home, there was nothing. Silence, cold, emptiness. And I started to think maybe I had imagined it. The mind is a fragile thing, after all. Then, 2 weeks later, Artem called. His voice was steady, but something about it didn't sit right, detached almost. He told me the conservatory had burned down.
a fire in the night. Official cause, electrical fault. Then he said something else. The night before the fire, his mother had returned home. She'd stayed in the same room, and in the morning she told him the same thing I had. The feeling, the breath, the presence. I didn't know what to say. He kept talking, but I'd already stopped listening. Because as he spoke, I glanced at the window. It was dark outside, and I saw my reflection. Blurred, indistinct, but recognizably me. I've always tensed up when I see myself in reflections, not out of superstition, just something unsettling about the way the face in the glass stares back, expressionless, like it's not copying you, but watching. For a moment, I looked away, back at my phone. Artem had already hung up. When I looked back at the window, something was wrong. My reflection was still there, but it looked like someone else was standing slightly behind me. A shadow, barely visible, faint, like a smudge on the glass. I leaned closer, looked carefully. Nothing. I crouched, stood up, tilted my head. Still nothing. But the feeling remained, like a half-heard sentence whispered at your back. You didn't catch the words, but you can't stop thinking about them. I turned around. No one there. Minutes passed. I walked into the kitchen. Everything seemed normal, ordinary. The smell of coffee, the old chair that always creaked when I sat. I looked at the window again, from a different angle. Same face, mine, tired, worn-out eyes. But to the right, there it was again, the silhouette. Closer than before. Now I was sure. I couldn't see a face, no clear detail, but the image had shifted, like something had moved closer to my reflection. I suddenly found it hard to breathe. I looked away, waited a few seconds, looked again. It was even closer, right next to my shoulder. I spun around. Nothing. Absolute emptiness. I began systematically checking every reflective surface in the apartment, the bathroom mirror, the glass on the front door, the black screen of my laptop, even the water in the sink. And in every one, the same thing. Every time I looked away and then looked back, he was closer. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't panic. I wasn't even scared in the usual sense. Fear wasn't an emotion. It was a constant. I felt sick, cold.
I started to realize time was behaving strangely in the room. Those few seconds between glances stretched longer than they should have. I covered every mirror, draped towels over the windows, turned on every light, even though it hurt my eyes. But the screens remained. The monitor, the phone, the shine of the coffee machine, the tabletop, and in each one, him. Always in shadow, no face, no motion, just presence, dent, like fog, like static, like the ache in your teeth from something too cold. I began recording short videos on my phone. None of them showed anything. No shadow, no figure. But the next time I looked at the screen, he was staring right at me. For the first time, directly. My face and his, side by side, both still, calm. But his eyes were wrong, empty, not just of emotion, of depth, as if he was already inside me, but not me. I stopped looking in mirrors, turned off my phone, shut my eyes. But the less I looked, the more I felt him in my body. The tilt of my head over the sink, the tension in my back as I sat, the cold when I passed the window.
And then it hit me. When I finally dared to look into the dark window at night, I wasn't there anymore. He was, standing alone, without me. And suddenly I understood. He hadn't been getting closer to me. I had been getting closer to him. Every time I looked away. I didn't leave the apartment for days. Lived in near darkness. Moved from room to room blindfolded, feeling my way like in a childhood game. No mirrors, no screens, laptop taped shut, sink covered, fridge too. Any surface that might show my face, sealed. I stopped shaving, my hair clumped together, stopped washing my hands. But the fear of being dirty felt ridiculous when your biggest fear isn't you anymore. On the 6th night, I broke. I just sat in front of the black TV screen, stared into it. Half an hour, I wasn't counting. I watched the faint flicker of my reflection, or someone's, something vaguely like me, and it wasn't moving anymore. It was already in my place. I raised my hand. It didn't. I tilted my head. It stayed still. And that's when I realized it wasn't him who came here. I'm the one who stayed there. In that first reflection, that night I kept my eyes shut. Since then, I've just been playing the part. Moving, eating, talking, returning to the city. But I'm still on the other side of the glass. Hands pressed against the cold, transparent barrier, watching. He doesn't look in mirrors anymore, doesn't give me a chance to come back. But I'm waiting. So far he's careful, but sooner or later he'll slip. He'll look, because that's what we do. It's not fear, it's not choice, it's habit. The gaze always seeks itself. And when it finds me again, I'll come back.